Welcome to the Talk Like a Leader podcast, where we explore the mindset, skill set, and habit set of leadership communication. Using these tips, techniques, and tactics, you'll be able to talk like a leader to build better relationships and get more done. Your host is Guy Harris, who has more than 20 years of combined professional and military experience in consulting, coaching, and training in areas like team and interaction dynamics, communication strategies and tactics, as well as emotional intelligence. Take it away, Guy.
Hi, this is Guy Harris. Welcome to the Talk Like a Leader podcast. This week's episode is titled Provide Data Both Accurately and Honestly. And this is a continuation of some prior episodes. I'd say that the two that most closely tie to the topic or the general idea I'm addressing today would be episodes titled Provide Context When You Share Data, and a second episode would be Learn to Speak Accurately. So all three of these episodes are hitting at the same kind of idea from a little bit different angle, and really in total will expand the idea and the concept a little bit further. So here's part of the idea that I want to get across today, is that because of the way our emotions work, it is possible to be accurate in the way you say things without really being honest. Well, let's take a look at the words accurate and honest for a minute. So accurate means that your statement is free from error or defect. And I talked about the difference between accuracy and precision before. So accuracy is related to how factual is the thing you said. Are the facts of what you said defensible? And so you can say something that is accurate and not honest. What's the difference between accurate and honest? Honest means that it's free from deceit and untruthfulness, that it's really sincere. While this is probably not 100% true, I'll say that honesty often relates to the intent of the way the person or the speaker has framed their argument or their discussion. And while I won't say that people use numbers and data dishonestly on purpose to trick people, I do believe, I have observed that people, communicators, leaders, can use words in an effort to either subtly or maybe even overtly manipulate the emotions of others. And when you cross that line to where you're choosing, consciously choosing at least, a communication technique that you know is going to trigger another person's fear response, when maybe the fear response is not deserved. Maybe you're overstating the problem in a way to gain some influence with the person. You're drifting into manipulation. That's drifting into dishonest, even though it might be phrased accurately. And in many ways, it's not 100% of the time, it's often true, though, that this difference between accuracy and honesty plays on the fact that many, and you might even say most people, don't really assess or understand risk all that well. In fact, I've read some studies about how you can ask people who, by their training and occupation, deal with risk a great deal and hopefully would understand how risk works, and ask them to make an assessment of a good or bad decision based on risk assessment. This would be people like doctors and attorneys and sadly even statisticians, that even they, people who know risk and risk calculations and how probabilities work and all these kind of things, when asked to make a decision using risk numbers, often apply the risk numbers incorrectly. So if you're not skilled in the art of assessing risk, and you're confronted with evaluating data that's presented in a way that's accurate and not honest, you might be persuaded to make a bad decision based on actually good data. And if you're the speaker, you want to be careful that you don't do that. Because we can phrase things in a way that accurately portrays the data or the facts of a situation, and at the same time elicits an emotional response in our listeners that does not really honestly reflect the situation. And here's one example. So you could phrase something this way. X event, whatever it is, increased from 0.1% of the time to 0.2% of the time. Now, whether 0.1% to 0.2% is a lot depends on some variables that I talked about in the episode Provide Context When You Share Data, because given the context, 0.1% to 0.2% could be a big deal. And most of the time, 0.1% to 0.2% is not a big deal. So X event increased from 0.1% of the time to 0.2% of the time. Now, a way you could phrase that in a way that might elicit fear in the listener is to say the incidence of X doubled. Well, it is factually accurate that the incidence of X doubled when it went from 0.1% to 0.2%. And at the same time, it's not really an honest presentation of the facts because it doesn't provide the right context for the person hearing the data to know whether doubling is even a big deal or not. The thing is that doubling sounds like a big deal, and in the specific incidents discussed, it might not actually be a big deal. Now, there's a phrase or a comment that I've seen attributed to Mark Twain as I was trying to track it down to see if it's actually his quote or not. I think it turns out that he didn't originate this phrase, that he also just repeated it from someone else. And I don't know that we know for sure exactly where the phrase came from. Although the phrase really does get to the heart of what I'm talking about today in terms of talking like a leader and making sure that you're both honest and accurate, or both accurate and honest. And the phrase is, there are three kinds of lies: lies, damned lies, and statistics. It means this: we can use statistics and we can twist them and contort them and state the statistics in a truly accurate way that you can't argue with the facts of the statement. You can argue with the honesty of the statement because the statistic is repeated or reported in a way that either overplays or underplays its significance. There's not the right context around it. There's not the right precision about how we present the data. There's not the right intent to be clear with people. The data is presented accurately and not honestly. And here's what I would argue. If you want to talk like a leader, you'll learn to speak both accurately and honestly so that you can use data to paint a picture of what's going on rather than to artificially persuade people by playing on their fears. Learn to speak accurately and honestly, and you can talk like a leader. This has been the Talk Like a Leader podcast. You can listen to this show every week wherever you get your podcast. If you haven't, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm Guy Harris, and thanks for listening.